A significant and powerful system will be developing this weekend. Thank you for joining me. I'm meteorologist Brian Shields here on Snow Bros. It is Wednesday, January 28th, 2026. This one's going to be a tricky one. As big as the last system was, we had a pretty good handle on some of the impacts. This one is going to be very difficult because there's going to be a sharp cutoff between a very significant snow, extremely strong winds. This system could be one of the strongest we've seen this winter, or we will see for the entire winter. I'll show you that. And then this will be lifting up to the north, but also on the flip side, some of us may get absolutely nothing out of this. So we're going to keep it in perspective on this channel. Let me show you how it develops first in one of the kind of concerns. Look how this starts to wrap up. This is Sunday morning. Look at some of these reds in here. Those would be gusts of 70 miles per hour. That is going to happen. This is mainly over the open water, of course, but very significant winds back through the Outer Banks, watching a Kitty Hawk over toward a Corolla Duck, lifting up to the north through Delmarva, even the Jersey Shore, watching out for those significant winds. But this is going to rapidly strengthen. We're going to see it really deepen very quickly in a 24-hour period. You see even some of these yellows in here. Those would be 90 miles per hour as far as the winds go. Again, keeping it in perspective, the core of that is sitting over the ocean, right? Again, that's not sitting over land, but because it's so close by, significant winds by the time we get into Sunday all the way up through the Cape Cod Bay coming out of the north. Gusts could still be as high as about 50 to 70 miles per hour. That could lead to a backup on the Cape Cod Bay. That will lead to coastal flooding. Coastal flooding is going to be likely in this event. This is totally different from the last system with a very classic nor'easter and then eventually lifting its way up toward the Atlantic region of Canada. So let me show you how this develops. Then I want to show you the possibility of snow and the high uncertainty with this. Now this here is Friday into Saturday. We'll stop the clock here. You can see it. This is by the time we get into Saturday morning, 6 o'clock, you see some of that moisture really building, tapping in from the Gulf, back through the Bahamas, some of that snow starting, Southern Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, parts of Georgia. We'll zoom down in a second, mainly off toward the east of Kentucky, West Virginia, and Tennessee, although there'll be some snow. But this is when it starts to really strengthen as we get into Saturday and Sunday. I mentioned strengthening in a hurry over a 24-hour period, and you see it right there, the center of this. This would be a huge snow in through here, but I'm still not certain. I'll let you know what I know and what I don't know, how much of this is going to be along the coast. But look at that spot right in there. This is the center of this, and this is why it is of high concern. I'm hoping this stays over the water, or at least most of it over the water, because we're going to have very strong winds in this, and then that snow that will be potential for parts of New England. I'll zoom down in a moment, and then lifting up toward the Atlantic region of Canada by the time we get into Monday. So a classic nor'easter, which means a very sharp divide between snow and no snow at all. And that could be a 15-20 mile difference between maybe a foot of snow and almost nothing. And I trust your judgment. You've been through these systems before and how they kind of shake out. So in through here, this is Saturday morning. Here's some of the snow. Keeping an eye on Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, as I mentioned, but more so parts of northern Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. And then later on Saturday, as this area strengthens here, you could see the snow will become more significant. Raleigh, back through Richmond, over toward Virginia Beach, a plowable snow. This could be a rather significant snow. I mentioned days ago, models have been in good agreement back through North Carolina for a significant snow. That is holding. That's more of the certain part of this. And then you see that snow by the time we get into Saturday night, back through Richmond, Harrisonburg, over toward JMU, back through D.C., back through George Mason. You get over toward Fairfax. Here is Salisbury, keeping an eye on Dover, Rehoboth for some of that snow that will be around. This is Sunday morning. The snow, again, I mentioned significant parts of North Carolina, parts of Virginia. This is the American model. I want to show you the difference in the European in a second. European's a little more offshore, but we could have that snow in New Jersey. There's a lot of coulds, what ifs in this. That's how it's going to go for about the next 24 hours. But know that Matt and I will get a good handle on this over the next 24 hours. And then you see this system. This is going to really strengthen here by Sunday morning. And if it's just a touch closer, that would mean a huge snow for the Cape, Long Island, keeping an eye on Rhode Island, back through Connecticut, New Jersey, and watching Delmarva. But any nudges more to the east would bring us nothing, just some of that colder air. But then this lifts up to the north on Sunday, and then you see that snow. But look at that sharp divide. New York City, I'm not sure. We're on the edge of it, right? Could be a significant snow, could be nothing at all. Maybe Summit, nothing, and then maybe New York dealing with some of that snow. Here's New Jersey, Delaware. We get back through Hartford, Glastonbury, Manchester, Cumberland, New Bedford, Fall River, watching out for some of that snow potential right through Long Island, back through Uniondale, Block Island over toward the Hamptons. Then later on Sunday, Vermont, not as much, but New Hampshire monitoring the snow. Maine, it could be one of those issues. Northern Maine, nothing. Coastal sections of Maine, the potential of a significant snow. This would be Sunday, and then lifting its way back toward New Brunswick, southern sections, Nova Scotia. Of course, as we get down the road, the Atlantic region of Canada back through Newfoundland, again, more uncertainty because we're a little bit more out in time. Trying to get a handle of this thing for the Carolinas at this point, yet alone the Atlantic region of Canada. Now, here's the European model. It does at times show very similar stuff to the American model, at least initially. We'll get some of that snow. This here would be by Saturday morning. This is the European model, keeping an eye near Athens, so mainly to the north and east here of Atlanta. That snow back through parts of Tennessee, then Winston-Salem by Wake, seeing some of that snow down through Columbia, seeing that snow right across 85. That snow, which could be significant in some spots. There may be some snow flurries on the backside. Snow flurries will be a potential all the way down through central Florida, a Saturday night into early on Sunday. Snow flurries all the way down through central Florida, possibility in that, just to show you, kind of give you a feel of how cold this is going to be. And I'll show you that cold weather in a second once we get past some of the snow totals. This would be by Saturday night, early on Sunday morning. And you can see here the system that would be near the Outer Banks of North Carolina. I do have high concern for the Outer Banks. We get over toward the Lost Colony. Everything could really be backing up as far as the water is concerned. Obviously, huge beach erosion. This is going to be a massive beach erosion event either way, but this could be that significant snow. The European model showing snow Charleston, Wilmington, back through Jacksonville, North Carolina, and then over toward Greenville as we work our way into North Carolina. And you see here, again, this is Saturday night, Sunday morning, the center of it right here that could give us the snow. But this is a little more offshore, and I'm not sure which model's right. So what we do here, we don't just spit out the data. We look at all the models, especially the major models, and then we'll lean on one, and then, unlike some other entities, we will, I think we're just very unique at this, we will adjust the data for what we're seeing, the snow ratios, the cold air, all of that stuff. This looks to be a wetter snow, right? Not that fluffy stuff that a lot of us just had. But then you see how close this is, and that's why I mentioned I'm not sure yet. This is just going to be how it is. This could totally miss I-95, or this is just crazy, or it could dump a foot of snow. That's how it goes. Again, 1 inch of liquid, just liquid rainwater, equals a foot of snow. So if you just change that liquid amount just a little bit, that could dramatically reduce or increase the amount of snow. That's why snow forecasting is so hard. It's just a tiny bit of liquid that changes everything, right? You could go from 18 inches to 3 inches, and you're like, well, that's a huge difference, but it's actually, weather-wise, it's not. It's just a tiny amount of liquid that changes. I hope that some of that makes sense. This here would be by the time we get into Sunday, 7 a.m. This could be very close to the Cape and the Islands. Falmouth, Bourne, Hyannis, keeping an eye on Providence, of course, watching over toward Newport by Salve, Block Island right there. Here's Long Island. Maybe it splits Long Island, maybe eastern or western sections, nothing, and eastern sections getting some of the snow. And then this could be just really dumping on parts of the Cape and the Islands back through Nova Scotia. Now, like North Carolina, where the snow is looking more significant, I'll let you know the certainty. It does look like this is going to pivot up toward Nova Scotia, so the Atlantic region of Canada, in particular the Maritimes, look to see a significant snow. So also letting you know more of the certainty, the Carolinas, even South Carolina, looking at a snow that would be plowable, and then eventually over toward the Atlantic region of Canada. Everything in between is going to be very difficult, but this is really going to be strengthening as we work our way through the weekend. Now, how much snow are we going to see? Well, I told you I'm not sure. This one's a tricky one, but I'm showing you how this system is developing. But I want to give you a feel. This here would be the European model, and the European model is showing upwards of 6-7 inches of rain right here, 6 to 7 inches, back through parts of North Carolina and South Carolina in this purple shading here, around it about 4 to 5, right? That's what it's showing as of now. As we go out in time, this takes us through the weekend into next week. This here as well is the European model based on a 10-to-1 snow ratio. So again, a wetter snow than what we had last time. but it shows, you could see here's New Jersey, here's Delaware, for example, Delaware Bay. You could see again the heaviest stuff would be offshore. We'd have almost nothing, right? But if this just nudges just a touch, that could bring in a big snow to New Jersey. So as of now, the European model is actually saying really no snow for New Jersey, really no snow for Delaware. The American model, though, is showing that snow. But either way, the European model is showing that snow just kind of clipping by over toward the Cape and the islands, in which we could have a foot of snow, maybe a foot and a half in Nantucket, to about 10 inches over toward Provincetown. But then you just swing back toward Providence, even over toward a Worcester, over toward a Southborough, almost nothing, right? That's that very fine line. We'll be watching that as well back through parts of Maine. Now, as we look at this is the American model, this is the difference. It takes the core of this system that I just showed you, has it a little bit closer, that would bring in more snow, and that would include more of Virginia. And these snow totals very significant, showing a foot and a half of snow, 17, 18, 19, 20 inches of snow, parts of southern Virginia and northern sections of North Carolina. So there's a lot of what ifs. I know I don't like that. We really want to give you the information. But the certainty is that we're looking at a significant snow through parts of South Carolina, but in particular North Carolina, watching especially southern Virginia for that significant snow chance, and then everything else is just kind of monitoring this line. But as I mentioned, over the next 24 hours, Matt and I will know if this is going to be a little more offshore or move in. New Jersey, perfect sampling of what could happen, maybe some spots closer to the Poconos, nothing. Well, South Jersey could see upwards of a foot. We'll see how this shakes out. It just hasn't even developed. The system hasn't even developed. And I mentioned little change in the water amount, huge difference. So we're not only dealing with that, we're dealing with the actual location of this system. But it will be that strengthening nor'easter. But we got you covered here. So we're going to let you know everything we're seeing, and then we'll be able to nail down city by city snow totals, which for some of us could be a whole lot of nothing. Now, the cold air blast moving in. I mentioned this Sunday morning. Look at Florida. Back through Orlando, we'll be down in the 20s. Could be the coldest air in 10 to 15 years through parts of Florida. Even back through the Bahamas, Freeport, New Providence, could be down in the 40s. That's very rare to have temperatures in the upper 40s parts of the Bahamas, because the water temperatures are still, or at least I don't want to say relatively warm, they're warmer than the air temps. Now, we have that nor'easter developing. Carolinas, again, that plowable snow looking more significant, especially parts of South Carolina and a good portion of North Carolina. Monitoring southern Virginia at this point. It is going to strengthen near Delmarva and the Outer Banks. Not sure exactly where it is. 20, 25 miles is going to make a huge difference with this. And if this gets closer to the coast, this is going to be so significant, because in it there's the potential of a foot and a half, maybe 2 feet of snow and a wet snow, and then the very strong winds, high coastal impacts, huge beach erosion either way. But DC to Boston, just simply on the edge as of now. That's just the reality of this. So this is what Matt and I will be tracking for you in Snow Bros. If you're subscribed, you'll get those additional updates. Hope I explained the uncertainty, what we're seeing best I could. I'll be going through your comments throughout the day. I hope you have a really good day ahead.